Okay, well, welcome to the Ask Blue podcast. I'm joined, my name's Richard Austin. I'm joined by my colleagues Jord Malcorps and also Mitchell Chamberlain from Star. I'm Business Development Manager at Blue Star, looking after the point of sale business. Jord, do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us a bit about you.
I'm working for Blue Star now 8 years, and I'm the Business Development Manager for Europe for POS and Payment.
Cool, and I'm Mitchell Chamberlain, like you mentioned, and I work for Star Micronics in the UK as a Business Development Manager.
Good stuff. Well, thanks for joining me this afternoon. So basically, today we're going to talk about developments in the self-service market. We've got quite a lot to cover there. Interesting area to focus on. I guess the starting point is what exactly do we mean by self-service technology? What does this cover? What's included?
I guess probably the best way to describe it would be where you needed a person before to do a job, and now you can have either like a tablet or a screen hooked up to some software that has replaced that need for a person.
So companies basically either saving or redeploying staff by basically getting their customers to do their staff's job for them effectively,
making the customer experience a lot easier for the customer. Saving money, not needing a person there. And
I guess we could be talking about, it can be anything from a full-blown self-checkout solution to an iPad that you would use just to get information from, or to log into to something. It really covers quite a wide spectrum of different technologies. I guess at some point there's a screen there to interact with, whether it be a touch screen or not, some sort of interface for the person using it, and whether it's just different formats. A
QR code on a wall, scan me. That could be a self-service.
Yeah, right. Because actually, it doesn't even have to be a screen that's provided by the retailer. For example, it could be the consumer's own mobile phone screen that could be doing it. So that it really covers a really wide range of technologies. Yeah,
definitely. And I think there's a big change in self-service and self-checkout. Right, self-checkout. I think especially in grocery stores, you see it more happen. I think it's a great fact for the consumers to skip the line. I think that's the most important, right? I think we all feel that kind of frustration when you're grocery shopping and you have to stand in a queue to kind of make sure the payment and all the items are scanned. I think that is one of the most benefits. I think that's in self-service right now in the grocery stores for sure.
Yeah. So just putting a stop to queues, or at least reducing the amount of time that it takes to be in them. Yeah, good stuff. So, whereabouts? What are we talking about? Where is this used? What sectors do we mainly think we find self-checkout technology in? You mentioned grocery, Jord.
Yeah, I think grocery is the most impacted right now. I think, especially queue busting and self-checkout, there's two different things. I think queue busting really helps with, speed up the process in store. So you basically scan your own items, and, you walk up to the actual, cashier or to the self-checkout, and you just, scan your queue busting terminal. And that's, it rings out a bill, and that's, what you pay for. And that's, I think it speeds up the whole process so much quicker than it was in the previous.
Yeah, there's other places where it could be as well, like parking meters as an example. That's a form of self-service. You're going to a machine, you're putting your money in, you're getting a ticket, you're printing it out. We've even seen examples where there was boat moorings, where there's a kiosk at a boat mooring. Just think of it. There's probably a kiosk there for it.
Yeah, it's it's almost. It's been around for quite a long time, hasn't it? Self-service technology like that, especially if you use the parking attendant analogy. It's Better Call Saul, for example. That's what I'm a big fan of that series. And where would that be if Mike wasn't working as a parking attendant? But it's set nearly 20 years ago, isn't it? So
well, I think it's the same what we talked about. Back in the day already, it's self-service is already introduced in ATMs, right? In the previous, you went to a bank and you collected your money, and then it changes to just going into the wall, putting your PIN code, and you actually get the money out of it. That's already a form of self-service, basically.
Yeah.
And then now it's exploded, really. Like you can barely go anywhere without using it. Airport to check in, you've got it there. Hotels, you can check in with kiosks. Quite regularly check into the Village Hotel in Hull, and they've got kiosks to check in.
I wonder why there's not more hotels that have that, because there's a lot of hotels that still don't use that technology, and it's one of the. It seems to me that it's travel a fair bit with business again, which is great. But one of the most tedious aspects of it is sometimes having to wait in a queue for 10, 15 minutes just to get to the reception to check in or check out. It's the checkout process can be.
But even the simple things, what you said with kiosk, right? If you go to the dentist, just let them know you're there. Right, just push a button on the screen and you're there. It's just one touch, that's it. But it saves a lot of time, saves a lot of people basically waiting at the reception queues. So it's implemented in short and big kind of terms, right? It's.
So the question really is where could you not see self-service technology being used? That's it's hard to think of an application where this can't be brought in to some extent, I would say. Yeah.
I couldn't think of anything right now
where
you would not place a kiosk, right?
Honestly, I've trying to think about it for the last few days, and I couldn't think of a place where self-service kiosk isn't applicable.
I guess it's maybe some really high-end places where you're part of the experience you're paying for is that fully assisted service, but that's not to say that you couldn't. The even in these high-end places, the server could be. Whether it's a waiter that in a top class restaurant that really knows their stuff, or perhaps somebody in a fashion boutique retailer that's knows a lot about the product, and you really want a personalised experience, but they themselves might be relying on technology, whether it's ordering technology. So it's not quite self-service, but it's assisted service, I guess, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I think high-end, it's getting introduced as well in high-end. For example, if you walk into a BMW store or like an Audi store, right, you still have, real like people that actually help you out there. But if you walk into a Tesla store, you configure the whole Tesla on the screen, right? And you walk out with like a 70,000 euro purchase on the screen. So it's getting on the high end as well. It's just these new companies kind of that implement it also on the high end side, I think.
Yeah, I think if you're spending that amount of money, you'd want somebody to check that you've configured your car correctly. Yeah.
Well, apparently not, because for example, my girlfriend works at Tesla.
3 wheels on this car.
Well, I know for a fact in Eindhoven, for example, in my hometown, I know for a fact there's a Tesla store where there's no personnel. You just walk in there. There's one lady basically at the reception. She greets you and then she walks you through a screen. And you do everything on the screen. You just configure the whole Tesla by yourself.
I guess like the question would be like, why would you need that customer experience from a person? Why couldn't that be designed into a software? Like if you had a account at a certain place where you shopped regularly and they knew the size of the clothes you like, they knew the clothes that you've bought previously, why can't you apply some sort of like AI to that so they know that you don't want a bright pink jacket, you'd want like a dark navy blue or something like that, and it'd probably be more personalized as well, because the person behind the counter, they wouldn't necessarily remember you unless you were coming in there quite regularly or they were good at their job. And if you had an account to log in, which could be, you scan a QR code and it knows that it's your phone, or you tap your card and it knows that it's you before you purchase, the experience would be a lot better for the customer, even on that high end level. This is even without talking about things like VR or AR, looking in a mirror and seeing what the clothes look like on you. That's a self-service as well.
Yeah, it's a kind of self-service. I don't know. I mean, call me old-fashioned, and I'm surprised that you haven't already. But sometimes I think just having that human touch there is something that can elevate the experience.
Yeah,
but,
I think that's what it is. It's the impersonal experience, right? That it comes along, but I think the adaptation will take place to that, impersonal experience, getting personal through screen as well. It just takes time, software develops and it's getting more, exactly what you said. It gets more personalized to a certain point, I think, than the cashier can do.
Yeah,
Right.
and it's great if the merchant's good at their job. Like if the feeling you get from walking into a store where they know what they're talking about and they go, oh no, you want these shoes with those jeans and blah blah blah. Yeah, I think like that's great. If the person behind the counter is phenomenal at their job, I don't think it would be as necessarily. You wouldn't need it as much. But if the person's bang average at their job or below average at their job, a kiosk would do a lot better. Not only providing you with the customer service, but upselling you as well. These merchants, the would you like fries with that mentality, except in a retail store.
Yeah, I mean that's proven, isn't it? That's why. Do you want fries with that? Clearly, a lot of quick service fast food places, they're really very much focused on how. I think that technology works great in those kind of locations because it really does. It takes something that's pretty transactional that you just don't need a person to do for you. I think a kiosk, some sort of self-service application, whether it be a kiosk or on your phone or something, it makes the whole experience better for you. And I think the more something that's a little bit more unique, maybe a person does it better, but it's certainly the two are definitely converging. So
well, you see it in, I think McDonald's is a great example of fast food where really you don't want to sit in a queue. Of course, you don't want to wait in a queue to get your food ordered. And I think as you see right now, McDonald's, if I walk into McDonald's, it's very tough to actually go to the counter and order something these days, right? They just move you to the kiosk. Just go there, go to the self-checkout, and it's done.
I mean, I've seen people in at a McDonald's in a service station, and they were queuing. There were people at the counter waiting to serve them, and they were queuing to use the kiosks.
Yep.
To a busload of people had just arrived, and they were queuing, waiting to use the self-service kiosk. So,
well, the only thing I think why there is still employees at the counter at McDonald's is because there's cash, right? That's the only kind of downside of kiosks. You cannot accept cash, so there still needs to be this interaction for people that use cash in the day-to-day business.
Yeah, certainly in those kiosks, they're cashless, but even so, in grocery, there's definitely still card and cash self-checkouts that you can get, and they're still, it's moving towards card only, but slowly.
Yep.
Surely, but slowly.
Why do you guys reckon that's not adapted to smaller takeaway chains like kiosks and not kiosks? Like let me start it again. Why do you guys reckon that's not adapted to smaller venues like kebab stores and stuff like that? Like, why can't I go into a kebab store on any high street and order my kebab at 2:00 in the morning from a kiosk? Why do I have to speak to the person behind the counter?
Because there's nobody around in the kebab store at 2 a.m., just you.
Maybe you're going to the wrong kebab shops. Yeah, I think you can. I think that's starting to happen. I mean, one of the things that we definitely should talk about probably is the impact of the pandemic on self-service technology and how that's being deployed, because I think as we came out of the lockdowns induced by the pandemic, one of the things that definitely happened was that places started to get really busy again. But at the same time as places getting really busy again, people were naturally nervous about being too close to other people. So having the ability to use some sort of, whether it was self-checkout or self-service, I think that became a means of managing the queue and making sure that people weren't all bunched together trying to get to a counter or a bar to place their orders. And I know some of the self-service solutions that we offer are actually deployed in kind of busy tourist areas where it would be, they wouldn't necessarily want to take on extra staff, or wouldn't even be able to take on extra staff for 2 hours to cover the rush in the evening. But if they could put 2 or 3 or even just one self-service kiosk in a fish and chip shop or a pizza takeaway or something like that, so you could go and you could do your order there while you were waiting in the queue. Yep. That's accelerating. They can serve more people. They don't have to pay money for extra staff. And that sort of thing. So yeah,
I think self-service will be quicker adapted basically in kebab stores, for example. But self-checkout, it's also quite an investment, right, for the actual retailer to put it in. It's not a cheap solution, right? Self-checkout. So I think that's one of the reasons as well that smaller stores like medium merchants don't adapt so quickly, because it's quite an investment for a company like that, I think.
The prices are coming down all the time, though. If you think about how much you can spend a relatively small amount of money, I think, on a a fairly functional self-service kiosk. I mean,
yeah. Well, it's getting there, right?
Yeah.
It's getting there. I think the older technology just was still a little bit expensive, but it's getting there for sure.
And also, machines don't sleep, so it can be there 24 hours a day, or more realistically, it shows up first thing in the morning and works right through. No lunch breaks, no toilet breaks, nothing. It's just there, ready to serve. Every now and then it might need a poke and a prod to replace some paper or take some cash out or put some more cash in or something like that. But it's one person can do 30 machines, where before it was one person at a checkout. Like I remember as a kid, sort of, I don't ever remember not lining up when I'm going to the supermarket, and the lines were horrendously long. And to think about, like, I've actually not reflected on this until just now, and it's like, wow, queuing, that was a thing of the past, because now you can just go in and there's literally 15, 20 machines. In the busier times, yeah, there are queues, but they're very seldom. Most of the time you can walk straight up to a kiosk, scan your goods, and then walk out.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. And I mean, what are we seeing in terms of consumer behaviour? How do we think consumer behaviour is driving the move towards self-service kiosks? Is there anything about that we can pick up on?
Well, I think there's good things and bad things. I mean, you were saying earlier about some statistics on like theft in it, so it's probably driving it more to. Actually, what were those statistics?
Well, I think they picked out a random number in 2020 of 21 million, transactions basically done, and $850,000 has been not reported as scanned or bagged. So that's, is it a big number? I would say on 20 million revenue, yes, it's quite a big number. Yeah. So that's one of the, theft is definitely one of the reasons why this, is still adoption. Yes, no, I think.
And I think it's driving the kiosk market. I mean, like I talk quite a bit about, the self-service kiosks in the shop in supermarkets, because I use them 3-4 times a week. And 5-10 years ago, you wouldn't have a little video of you in the corner, but now you do, and that's because of adaptations like that. So the consumers are driving it to need more elements to ensure that things like theft and stuff like that go down. But I think
so. If people would just stop stealing, it would be we could have a lot more of those, and we'd be more efficient. Yeah.
These damn people stealing.
Yeah. But so go ahead.
So I think it's like, but I wouldn't want to go back to the old way. I wouldn't want to queue up and wait for old Doris at the checkout to scan the goods. The thought of that frightens me, having to line up.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting, though, that a Gartner study shows that the number of actual cashiers in the last decade have risen instead of, went down. So that's quite an interesting stat to me, why that happened, right?
Yeah, I guess there's probably more people are in and around the store that do help out with the cashier side of it. Yeah. So it's no longer just you're at the front of the store all day scanning and bagging goods. What you're doing is you're bobbing into the fresh fruit section to tend to that, and then you're getting called to the front of the store to help out with the self-service checkout, and then you're getting pulled over to the women's wear department and sorting out the clothes over there, and then you get pulled back to the self-service checkout when it's peaks and troughs throughout the day.
Yeah, I think the self-checkout area in a grocery store, for example, it just allows for redundancy, doesn't it? So you can redeploy staff. If you're going to be busy between 12 and 2, well, you can put all of your staff on the tills for the lunch break, but they're not just going to come in and work from 12 o'clock till 2 o'clock. They're going to come in at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they're going to work till, 4 or 5 in the afternoon, for example. So what do you do with them in the quieter times at 10 o'clock in the morning or 3 in the afternoon? What do you do with your staff then? Well, you can take most of them off the till, but also there's maybe you have let's say you employ five staff members during that time, but you know that you need 10 checkouts fully open on the lunch break. Well, self checkout gives you the ability to cope with that, flex when it's busy, and still have your staff deployed doing the different things that Mitch mentioned.
So the efficiency basically of each employment goes up.
Yeah,
that's I think what it is.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, even self-service checkouts at supermarkets have changed over the last 5 years. Five sort of 10 years ago, you didn't have that little handheld device you would go around and scan your products with and put them into your basket. So now you can effectively take out the queuing even more, not having to wait for somebody to scan their goods. You scan it, put it in your basket, weigh it at the end, and then you walk out the store.
Yeah, scan and shop. Yeah.
And I think this is by now already, generally accepted. Right, I don't see, if you walk into a store, you see always, the handheld devices next to each other. You scan your loyalty card, get it, walk to the store, and then, scan a QR code or, already pay at the cashier. I think it's great. I think also a next development in shopping is the Flash 1010. It's a good example for Carrefour in France. It's just the first kind of store that is no hands. There's 4 employees, 60 4K cameras, and 2,000 sensors on the roof. Basically what they do, you walk in with your loyalty card, the sensor scans the loyalty card, and you have a sort of avatar, and they see exactly what you pick out of the shelf, put it in your bag, and you just walk out. There is no cash, there's no payment, there's nothing. You just walk out the store, you get an invoice later, or you have an application, of course, where they deduct the money actually that you purchased. It's a bit of a, I think it's a longer way for acceptance because, RFID always tends to be, the next big thing next year, but it always pushes a little bit further. Yeah. I think the whole thing is with, are we trusting the technology that it actually sees what I'm picking, right? I think that's the most important thing. Do we trust that technology by now? Because what if, accidentally they put 2 bottles in when you only picked 1, right? That's a little bit, I think, where, we're not ready fully to accept that technology.
Yeah, but they're running a full supermarket with just 4 people, right?
It's a full supermarket, 4 employees.
Full size, yeah.
Yes, and it's just what I said: the 60 4K cameras and 2,000 sensors on the roof. That's it.
I think what will happen in that is what happened in the other supermarket kiosks is that if there are gaps in the security that people exploit, I reckon they'll continue to develop it and keep going. I mean, yeah, like that's the future really. Walking into a store, putting all your stuff into your bags and walking out without any like kiosk, anything like that. Like just the store knowing the I don't know what it is, like
I think
magicians.
It's way more accepted already, for example, by the Amazon stores, right, where you just walk in and you get basically you can pick whatever you want, you walk out. But it's different because it's normally 1 to 2 products. It's more like tech products that are a little bit more expensive. In a grocery store, you're picking maybe 50 items, right, which could lead to differentiation in what you actually have in the bag and what you actually have to pay for it. So I think that's the experience that will come along in the next couple of years for sure.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see if they're able to do a hybrid version of that, where there'd be shops where you could equally walk in, help yourself to whatever you need, or if you're doing a bigger shop, use the self checkout.
Yeah.
I mean, self checkout is certainly capable of doing some of that stuff with the sensors and the cameras already, isn't it? They're increasingly knowledgeable about what it is that you buy in. The camera, vision imaging systems in the cameras are knowing that if although a banana may weigh the same as a pack of razor blades, one's clearly 12 pence, the other one's 12 pounds, and you want to make sure that that a banana is curved and yellow and that razor blades are shaped differently.
Well, I think they solved the problem with RFID, and I think in the past they had the idea just to label any product with an RFID chip, and as soon as you put it in the basket or in your cart and you walk out without even scanning anything, they would see exactly what products are in there, and then you get a bill for it. That I think changes with the avatar. Now it's a virtual avatar that they actually can see exactly what you pick, and that's I think where it changes, because labeling any product in store is quite expensive with RFID chips.
Yeah, exactly that. And I mean it's already there. You put a banana on the scanner to weigh it, and you click vegetables, and because of the technology around the cameras and the scanners, it knows that it's around about that weight and it's yellow and it's curvy, So banana, as well as some other yellow fruit, pop up, and it's the same with like oranges and stuff like that. So you don't have to go A to Z, click B's, find banana. It's already there as like a suggested, and it's little tweaks in the software like that will continue to develop this and make it a more customer friendly service.
Yep.
Helping out the old Dorises that used to scan the goods now go shop in the scary machines. When she clicks find my fruit and banana's just right there, I'm sure she's got a sigh of relief.
Yeah. I think that goes back to what we were saying earlier about there's a need for self checkout. I think as well, probably the Doris or whatever she's called, or could be anybody, might just actually that day fancy a bit of a chat to the people that work in the local shop. So there's that as too. I don't think that self checkout will ever fully replace. There's probably no reason actually for those 4 people to be in that Carrefour store, right? It would probably work just as well without them. All right, somebody's got to put the products on the shelf and everything, but in terms of the checkout, they don't necessarily need to be there. But
it's I think for the checkout, it's especially in a later stage, it's not needed anymore. But I think now if somebody has a conflict with it or whatever, you kind of want to ask a person a question, and I think that's why those people are still in store. But finally, they can do it, probably with 0 employees. Yeah.
Yeah, eventually, yeah, that's interesting. So, I mean, are there any other challenges that self-service poses for whether it be in retail or hospitality? If you're putting a self-service solution in, what are the other challenges that we might come across? We've spoken about theft potentially being one of them. Are there other challenges that we need to highlight at all?
Complete incompetency.
Yeah, I think that's what is some customer difficulties, right? It's, I think, a later stage generation that has some trouble, using the actual screens and using some of those, applications. I think that's one of the
also it depends on the quality of the application as well as everything, doesn't it? I mean, there's good self checkout, and then there's also I've seen some pretty horrendous things put together just in terms of the hardware, where it's not as simple as just cobbling a few things together and sticking them in a metal box and putting it there. I mean, the hardware's got to work together. It's got to be fairly seamless. It's all got to be integrated. The software's got to work really well. And because ultimately, if it doesn't do that, then you've actually made it worse than it was before. It's self-defeating. It's really got to work and do the job for the consumer.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think some other challenges may pose around. Well, no, I guess we've already mentioned it. The cost of them are coming down, aren't they? And they don't have to be a big fancy bit of kit either. They like a self-service kiosk could literally be a tablet and a printer, or a tablet without a printer.
Yeah, I think it definitely is, as you move away from grocery and the volume that you're putting through, and even actually, it's not just self-checkout, it's self-service as well. The hospitality market, whether it be quick service restaurants, fast food, that's probably that is definitely one of the fastest growing areas for self-service technology. And I think obviously there you don't have the security concerns that we were talking about before, because you're basically, well, it's forecasting, isn't it, to call it sales word. You say what you're going to want, and then they go and make it for you. You've paid for the burger before you get the burger, so you can't. There's zero.
Exactly, it's a different concept than, of course, in store or in grocery stores. So it's I think especially fast food. It's you basically pay, or you basically check whatever you're paying afterwards, right? So there's no theft in there at all. So that's
Yeah,
and especially in those like hospitality markets with what's happened post pandemic with the labor shortages. I think they're the markets that we will see future growth in self service kiosks. I think that won't. I think we've turned the corner, and it's not gonna reduce. People aren't gonna want more and more people in stores. I think it's going to continue to grow.
I think as well, there's it's a psychological thing. I think following the following the pandemic, the Great Resignation, and people are probably less likely to want to do that sort of job. And if you can, if you, number one, if you can't get the staff, and number two, if you can replace certain functions that your regular employees would have done a few years ago with some sort of technology, whether it be self-service or something else, then definitely there's that's going to be popular. Yeah. So what about? So we talked quite a bit about retail. We talked a little bit about hospitality as well. What are the other markets where we might see self-service technology? Where else is it growing? I think you mentioned dentists earlier. Definitely healthcare is a market. You go to your local GP surgery now, and a lot of the time there's a touch screen there. You go, you check yourself in on that touch screen. I mean, that's self-service, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what we said, I think it's applicable in every market. I think there's not really any kind of vertical or market that we cannot implement this, right?
I mean, like,
I'm determined to think of one. We've got to come up with one before we finish today. We've got to come up with something.
Give me an example, and I'll tell you what a kiosk would do in it. Then this is like festivals. You have your RFID tags that you get printed out, and you don't even need a wallet in some festivals these days. You load money onto your RFID tag, and you have no responsibility about losing your wallet. I guess the only element to that isn't completely self-service is getting patted down by the security guard, but I'm sure in the future there'll be machines for that.
Yeah.
Well, there's already machines to help with that, right? The metal detectors and that kind of thing. It's
I think there was a big study for Disneyland, exactly what you said with the RFID tag, right?
Yeah.
You get a bracelet basically with your RFID and you load money to it, but instead of loading money up front, you just connect your credit card to it. And that's
dangerous is what it is.
That's very dangerous, but that's I think 30 or 35% more spending because of that technology. Is the average kind of visitor in Disneyland spends 35% more on an RFID tag.
Well, right, because if you've got to stop and load your card up, you've got a chance to think about whether you really, really need those Mickey Mouse ear headbands, right?
And they kind of hide the price as well, so it's just bum, and it looks like you get it for free, but wait for the bill afterwards.
Yeah.
Or an even worse scenario, you have to hook your one credit card up to your wife and two kids, and then your kid goes and just like, yeah, Mickey Mouse, boop.
Well, yeah, that's what happened. What I said on the Tesla, example. I know somebody that actually, was driving in a Tesla, and you can these days on the actual screen in the Tesla car, you can pre-order or reorder certain things, even certain functionalities for, Tesla as a computer. It's not a car anymore. So there's this kid, 9 years old, and she ordered, this self driving test, and it was like €6,500, and she just paid for it like that. Boom. Okay, we like it. And then the car was, a self-driving car, and she just paid for it in the car.
I mean, driving lessons are expensive, but surely it would still be cheaper to teach the child to drive, right? Yeah.
I think healthcare is a big one. You see, like you've seen a big increase in self-service in healthcare. Even just simple things like putting your details in, so you're not having to talk to a person anymore. You put your details in, and then the doctor knows that you're sat there waiting. They know who you are. They know all your credentials and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's all linked into the system, isn't it? Yeah.
But also just to describe pain, right? It's many times now that you have a screen basically, and it says the smiling and the sad face, and then you have to describe what kind of pain you're in, and that's used a lot as well. And next to the beds, basically, I'm very pain, no, not medium pain. That's kind of how they describe it. It's changing in hospitality and healthcare for sure.
All that low level stuff, whether it, whatever industry it's in, if it's a fairly simple, straightforward menu of questions or whatever it is, then definitely that replacing have somebody there with a clipboard that's taking that information and then going off and probably inputting it into a computer later. That's,
what I said, for example, with the dentist, for me it's strange if it's not there anymore. Right, you're so used to it to kind of not stand in the queue or not tell a person that you're there. It's just basically click and you go, and they know that you're there. I think today it's something, it's unmissable. It's it needs to be there.
Absolutely, yeah. So what about the future? What does the future look like for self-service technology? Where are we going? We're going to be all replaced by robots and kiosks in the future?
Well, I think if in the next couple of years the testing, for example, the Carrefour example, will go right, I think that will be a big change, and we'll definitely move towards that side of less employees, more computers, more RFID chips to do that stuff. I think for sure that's where we move to.
I think the computing side of it's going to increase as well. The information you get. So before when you would go to a checkout and you would scan your goods through, it'd be a question: do you have your loyalty card? No, I don't have my loyalty card. Or I've got it and I don't want you to scan it. But now with a lot of these applications, they know who you are, they know what you're buying, so the buying habits are tracked more. And as scary as it sounds, I think it's beneficial, because how good would it be if you walked into a store and you got addressed, or you went up to some sort of futuristic kiosk where you click a button and they know it's you, then out just pops a bag with all the goods in it without you walking around. I think that's very plausible.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of like Argos, which is like a warehouse where you go in and you order your products. Well, you used to order them from the catalogue. These days you can do that on a touch screen. It's like that concept combined with a grocery store, right? You go in and the store's all in the background, and you do your. Because I guess one of the disadvantages of self-checkout is if you get to the self-checkout and you're halfway through your shop and you realise that you forgot to buy toothpaste or something, you're committed at that point. You can't, you don't want to abandon your basket or anything to go back. So, I mean, that's one of the good things about self-scanning, isn't it? Whether you're doing that on a mobile device or your own mobile device, your phone, you can be reminded as you go around that with some of the smart technology that they can use in that, if you're walking down the toothpaste aisle and you haven't got toothpaste on your list, or you haven't thought to buy it at that point, they can know where you are and flash up, hey, you need to get some Colgate or whatever. So that's there. It would be good if there was a way of doing that at the self-checkout as well.
Yeah, besides self-checkout, I think in retail also there's, some concepts that kind of change the self-checkout and also deduct, I think, a little bit of self-checkout. For example, last week on an event, they showed us a store in San Francisco where they actually had only employees walking there with all different tech products. So there's like a bicycle, there's like a car, there's like other things that you can test. And actually the employees will give you advice, but there's no sales strategy behind it. So it's just giving advice about the product. They're not kind of creeping up on you to kind of sell the stuff. It's just advisement. And then after that, you scan the QR code and it gets ordered at home. So that's also a way of self-checkout, with still a lot of employees basically do the advisement and do the, customer experience.
So you go there and you test the products.
Yes.
Yeah. So you pick what you want there.
Yes.
And they advise you on maybe one of the
every month,
features.
all the products will change, right? So this month it's just, 50 of different products, and then next month it's total different concept again. And the actual employees, they don't do any sales things, so they don't give you a sales pitch from I think this is why you need the product. Just test it yourself. If you like it, scan the QR code, you go to Amazon or to whatever e-commerce site, and you just get it delivered at home.
Yeah,
it's also a form of self-checkout.
Yeah,
but a total different concept again, as paying on a kiosk or ordering on a kiosk.
Another market that has self-service in it.
Yeah, we've still not found anything that you can't apply this to, have we? So nope. I give up. So bringing this back to to what we do, what Blue Star offers, and the product side of things, the actual solutions that we can offer. What are the main areas that we want people to take a look at, where in terms of how we can help them to add self-service solutions to what they offer on, to Blue Star resellers, what they can offer onto their own customers?
Well, of course, we work with different manufacturers that offer these kiosks, and they're already ready to go. That's I think a new concept that comes along quite often. Is just manufacturers that build kiosks without implementing different manufacturers into one kiosk. So it's just the concept of basically having a kiosk as a one-stop shop, and that kiosk will basically do everything. So I think there's a changing a lot. I think kiosking is for manufacturers is the next booming thing. As you can see, I think any manufacturer that's involved in retail or hospitality is building these kiosks, right? So I think that's, as Blue Star, we have to offer a lot of these manufacturers to our resellers.
I think we have. I mean, if I look at what we've got within all the different vendors in our portfolio, there's pretty much a a product to fit every element of the kiosk, whether it be the touch screen or the actual kiosk housing itself, the scanner that goes with it, the printer that goes in there. There's definitely, in terms of the hardware, I think we've there's nothing missing from what we
no,
we
and I
offer,
think it went from resellers building from scratch the solution with different kind of hardware, where it's now the manufacturer just has it all in one go, right? So it's I think that's evolving quite a lot.
I think one of the things that's helping that is the fact that the technology is so ubiquitous. It's everywhere, and I think people are actually they whether they're walking into a takeaway or a restaurant or a shop, they're looking for how do I check out.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily have to be the find the person, find the checkout. They're looking for the kiosk that they can do that on. Yeah.
But I think as well, when we walked the retail show a couple of weeks ago in London, you saw on every stand a self-checkout, right? A self-built checkout from this manufacturer already, with everything included. It's just one SKU that you basically, order, and you have the whole solution already in store. So, I think manufacturers really make it easy these days to kind of implement that technology.
Definitely, yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah, that's good. Well, I think that pretty much covers what we had to talk about, really.
Yep.
Yeah, we didn't find an area where you can't use self-checkout. I think we've learned a lot about where you can use self-checkout. Definitely would encourage anybody that's interested in getting into this in more detail to contact us.
For sure.
And
let's challenge the audience to put a vertical in the comments where
they don't need it.
Yeah,
I was going to say that's a great idea. If somebody can come up with a vertical that doesn't need a self-service or a kiosk, I'd be interested to have a beer with that person.
Yeah. So. Yep.
And I've not given up on this, by the way. I might have run out of time today, but I've not given up on. I'll find something. Yeah.
I believe you as well.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure. Great to see you as well, Jord. And that's the next one.